Welcome to another episode of Senior to Seniors, the podcast where I try to share stories, wisdom, and real conversation designed to inform, to inspire, and uplift those of us navigating life's later chapters. So today's guest is Peggy Sharr, and Peggy brings a story of profound courage, resilience, and of healing. Peggy is a licensed clinical psychotherapist, author, and fierce advocate for those living with chronic pain, especially the often misunderstood condition known as burning mouth syndrome. But Peggy's journey is about far more than physical pain. After the devastating loss of her son to suicide, she faced not only unimaginable grief, but also years of relentless burning mouth pain that doctors, they just couldn't explain. Out of that suffering, Peggy did what few could. She transformed the purpose into her book, The Burning Mouth Syndrome Survival Guide. It's part memoir, part manual, a raw, honest, and deeply human guide to reclaiming your life when pain tries to take it away. For so many of our senior listeners who face loss, chronic illness, or medical dismissal, Peggy's message is powerful. You are not alone, and you are not without hope. So today we'll talk about the mind-body connection, how trauma can live in the body, and how to find your voice again after life has silenced it. Peggy, welcome to Senior to Seniors.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's so nice to have met you. We talked prior for just a little while, learned a little bit about you, and you've had quite a journey in your life. But for listeners that aren't familiar with burning mouth syndrome, and I've got to tell you, I wasn't until I found you. I had never heard of it. As a matter of fact, when I went to my Alexa device, I said, "Hey, Alexa, what percentage of people in the United States have burning mouth syndrome?" Alexa, which knows everything, right? She said, "I don't have that information and I can't give it to you." And I think it to me, at least, is something I haven't heard of. But just because I haven't heard of it doesn't mean that it's not a very important thing for listeners to know about. That even if they don't have it, maybe they can help somebody that does by providing them with the information they'll learn today, by guiding them to your book, which is available easily, the Burning Mouth Syndrome Guide. I actually have it. Before we went on, I actually have it on my device. I want to pull it up here. This is what it looks like, everybody. And so I have it on my Kindle to be able to have read it. And so it's available. But for listeners, Peggy, that aren't familiar with burning mouth syndrome, what exactly is it? And why is it often misunderstood or dismissed by the medical community?
So first, before I describe what burning mouth syndrome is, I can give you an answer that Alexa was not able to give you. It's about 2 to 3% of the population. That's the estimate. Although they say it probably is more because there's probably a lot that are not reported because, just like you said, a lot of clinicians and doctors really have never heard of it themselves.
Yeah.
So first, I'll describe the symptoms, and then I'll talk about what it is and what you talked about, why doctors don't know about it and so forth. So burning mouth syndrome is a nerve condition. So it affects specifically the lingual nerve in your tongue that comes from the trigeminal nerves in the face. Now, some people can be affected in other parts of their mouth, but it's mostly the tongue. There's also 2 types of burning mouth syndrome: primary and secondary. So I have primary, so I'll briefly describe secondary. So if there are listeners out there who are in the beginning stages of having these sensations in their mouth and they just don't understand what's going on, the first thing you want to do is rule out if it's secondary. So secondary, I'm going to call this BMS just to shorten things, okay? Because in the burning mouth syndrome world, that's what we call it, is BMS. Okay. Mm-hmm. So secondary BMS has an underlying condition. And there's a long list of possibilities. It could be something called Sjogren's syndrome, which is a dryness through the body, and oftentimes they have dry eye, dry noses, things like that. So that's an underlying condition. It could be a reaction to a medication, particularly some high blood pressure medications can have that side effect of the burning mouth. But there's a long list of those, and those are in my book. It's not a comprehensive list, but it's pretty long. So for someone who's experiencing the symptoms, and I'll describe the symptoms in a moment, that's the first thing that they should do is go to their primary care physician and rule out any underlying conditions, because that could be the cure, because there really is no cure for primary burning mouth syndrome. And I'll talk about that too, in terms of treatments, and that there is no cure. So that's the first stage, is to determine, do I have primary? Do I have secondary? And so going to your primary care physician and researching, you can do a Google search, what are the underlying causes of secondary primary, secondary BMS, and a list will come up. So, and in fact, if you Google burning mouth syndrome, there's a lot of information online.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing comprehensive, there's no cure, but there's a lot of information on there. So the symptoms of both secondary and primary BMS, because they do present the same, even though secondary has an underlying condition to it. Primary has no underlying condition, so it's considered idiopathic, meaning they don't know where it comes from. There's no cure for it. It's just a mystery, a medical mystery.
Yeah.
And if you go to Google Scholar, which is the sister to google.com, where you can look at journal articles, which I have done a ton of, you will see that there are quite a few studies that have been done on BMS. But they're all very small studies, and they're all focused on one specific thing or another. So like trying one specific medication, or trying one specific diet, or this type of thing. And some of the studies are studies of the studies. So where they're reviewing the studies that are on there, and then just giving you a review of those. So it's not like there's not information out there. There's information out there, but it's very, very limited. And so, but even though there's a lot of information out there, most doctors have never heard of it. Yeah. So when I first went to my doctor and told her what was going on, she didn't know, she didn't even have a name for it. So she said, well, let's do an MRI to see if you have a tumor in your brain, or something that's causing, some altered sensation. So before I went to my primary care physician, it was several weeks, because just as you had mentioned, I lost my son to suicide. I was in immense grief. This was going on in my mouth, but I didn't have the bandwidth to pursue it. So I hadn't done a Google search yet. I hadn't made an appointment with my doctor yet. I didn't know what was going on. I just was living with it. So how it presented with me, and it can present initially in different ways in different people, but the first presentation was a metallic taste in my mouth. And so it wasn't the burning, it was just this odd metallic taste in my mouth. Okay. So when I did have the energy to research, that was the first thing I looked up. What can cause metallic taste in the mouth? And a lot of answers came back from Google. Medication reaction, drinking from stainless steel. I mean, there was a whole host of things. So I just kind of went through those and went, okay, which ones of these could possibly apply to me? And so the first thing I did was stop taking medications that I was taking, thinking, okay, well, maybe they're medication related. That did not make a difference. After a few weeks, the metallic taste then morphed into this burning sensation. So the best way to describe it, you've eaten hot peppers, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So that sensation you have in your mouth after you've eaten something very spicy, jalapenos or even habaneros or whatever, that sensation doesn't go away. It stays. And then on top of that, your tongue feels like you've burned it on hot, super hot coffee. That feeling where it's sandpapery and grainy.
Yeah.
So it's all those things. It's the altered taste, the altered sensation of the way your tongue feels, and then the burning, like you've just eaten hot peppers, but the feeling doesn't go away. And there's really nothing that makes it go away. That you can mask it, but there's nothing that really just soothes it completely. And I go into this in my book that there are some things you can do. I discovered Ricola lozenges. Original was kind of my go-to of how I was dealing with this metallic taste in the beginning, and then ultimately the burning. So I went to the doctor. She did the MRI. It came back normal. She said, well, let's do some food allergy testing. Still at this point, I had never even heard of burning mouth syndrome. So she did food allergy testing. Everything came back normal. So then she referred me to an ENT. So this is something that people with burning mouth syndrome go through, is seeing a myriad of different specialists,
Mm-hmm.
because they're usually, once they're scratching their head, okay, I don't know what this is, I'm going to refer you to the next doctor and see what they can do. So and as you know, in the medical world, you don't go the next day. You have an appointment in a few weeks, sometimes even a month or two.
Sure. Yeah.
So a few weeks went by. I went to the ENT. The burning mouth syndrome still wasn't a word or a phrase that I had been presented with. He gave me a steroid rinse and said, oh, do this for 30 days. Whatever's going on, this should probably take care of it. So I did the steroid rinse, and that actually made it worse because it left me with an even odder taste in my mouth. The burning, it would maybe soothe it for maybe 30 minutes or something like that. But I kept doing it, thinking I got to do this for 30 days. So
Uh-huh.
the 30 days came and went, and no change. So then I read that maybe a dentist would be able to, uh, figure out what was going on. So I went to my dentist. My dentist didn't know what was going on, but he said, you need to see an oral pathologist. I didn't even know there was such a doctor.
Yeah. Who would know? Right.
Yeah, didn't even know, because if I did, that would be the
The
first place I
first
would have
place.
gone.
Yeah.
Again, waited a few more weeks till I had that appointment. Had the appointment at the oral pathologist. She immediately knew what was going on. She said, you have burning mouth syndrome. I was like, what is that? I've never heard of that before.
Uh-huh.
So at least I had a diagnosis. At least I knew what it was. And she knew by my presentation that I had primary burning mouth syndrome.
Yeah.
The other thing that I should mention is I may not look like it, but I'm a senior. I just turned 63 last Sunday.
Mm.
But burning mouth syndrome is most prevalent in women, and most prevalent in women who are middle aged or perimenopausal or postmenopausal.
Yeah.
Some men do get it, but it's a tiny percentage, and some young people get it, but that's also a very tiny percentage.
Yeah.
So this really is a condition that is suffered mostly by seniors or middle-aged people.
Yeah.
They don't know exactly why, but one hypothesis is that it's hormonally related, because it does present oftentimes with people who are menopausal or postmenopausal. The other piece that seems to be a common vein with whether it's women or men or young people is some sort of traumatic event in their life, or anxiety and depression. So trauma, anxiety, and depression.
Yeah.
So just like so many other conditions and diseases, oftentimes there's an underlying mental health component to it. I don't know if your readers are familiar with the book, The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, but I highly recommend it because that's what the book is about. It's about how the body holds on to trauma and how it often presents in some physical ailment.
Peggy, what's the
Um,
name of that book again? I'm sorry, I didn't catch
the
it.
Body Keeps the Score.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Bessel van der Kolk is the author. Yeah,
Okay.
it's actually been on the New York Times bestseller list for many years. So
Okay.
it's not just a great book in terms of information; it's a really beautiful read.
Okay.
So I think your readers would enjoy reading that. And that is very eye-opening for a lot of people in terms of, why do I have all these physical ailments and doctors don't know what to do with it or don't even know what they
Hmm.
are.
Hmm.
Oftentimes the underlying, the root is some sort of traumatic event, or maybe you have anxiety or depression that you've just, have been dealing with most of your life.
Yeah.
There's something called the ACE score, and it is the adverse childhood experience. And so there's 9 data points on the ACE score, and they found that people with high numbers, where they score in the 7, 8, 9 area, have higher rates of physical ailments.
Is this in your book? Because I must have missed it.
It is not in my book.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's definitely in The Body Keeps the Score.
Okay.
He talks about the ACE. So that's, I think a nice tool, and you can find it online too. So if you want to, somebody's curious about it and they want to, do the test and score themselves, they can go online, find the ACE test and take it, and they can see. And then they put them in categories. If you score low, you're not likely to have these things going on. If you score in the mid range, you have, more moderate percentage of getting these, more physical ailments. And then, of course, if you're in the higher score, you are highly likely. And
Okay.
I score a 9 on the ACE score,
Unfortunately.
unfortunately. Yeah. And so I was at an 8 until my son took his life. And that was the final, because that's on there, someone that you are close to commits suicide.
Sure.
So that was the event for me, the traumatic event that then manifested this burning mouth syndrome. I
Oh,
don't have anxiety or depression, so that didn't really fit for me, but the traumatic event did.
oh, gosh, I'm so sorry.
Thank
Um,
you.
so, you're a therapist, so
Hmm.
you've been a therapist for years and
Yes.
for more than 20 years. So,
Yeah.
how has your professional knowledge being a therapist, has it helped? Has it hindered? Has it complicated things through this healing journey? Tell us about, how
That's
you're,
a great question.
yeah.
It's helped in the sense that I knew what I needed to do for myself and I knew exactly what I was going through. I wrote a little, I don't know even what you'd call it, a vignette, or um, it's called 12 Days of Grief. And I guess it was journaling. I was journaling every day, the 12 days after my son took his life. And I knew that that was one tool that would help me, because I've suggested that tool to countless patients over the years. I also knew that I needed EMDR. So for your listeners, EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It is the most effective, in my opinion,
Uh-huh.
tool, and it's talked about in The Body Keeps the Score, by the way. It's the most effective therapy modality for treating someone who's been through a traumatic event.
And what kind of doctor can implement that kind of treatment
That
for?
would be a psychotherapist.
Okay.
These days, psychiatrists don't really do psychotherapy anymore. They still do it on television. That irritates me every time I see a
Yeah.
show or a movie
Yeah.
where they have the psychiatrist doing the therapy. They prescribe meds. So you really want to go to a psychotherapist. Some psychologists, if you go to a clinical psychologist, they do mostly testing, but some psychologists will have sometimes a small caseload where they'll do psychotherapy.
Okay.
But if you want EMDR, you should specifically ask the therapist, are you trained in EMDR?
Uh-huh.
And there's a really great website called Psychology Today
Yeah.
that's national. And so if somebody's seeking a therapist, they can go on Psychology Today, and they have these great filters where you can put in, where you live, what your insurance is, but also what type of modality, therapy modality you're looking for, and EMDR is on there. So I knew the type of therapy that I needed to be able to heal from what I'd been through with my son, losing my son. So in that sense, being a therapist really helped me.
Sure.
Where it became a challenge is doing the work while I was grieving.
Hmm.
That was where it was tough.
Yeah.
I went back to work after 3 weeks of grieving. I don't recommend that to anyone.
Yeah.
3 weeks is not enough. I
Yeah.
think you have to treat it like a major surgery
Mm-hmm.
where, they tell you, 6 weeks, let your body heal, maybe 8 weeks.
Yeah.
At the time, I thought, what am I going to do? Sit at home and be in my pool of sorrow?
Yes.
I want, I'll get back to work and then I'll get my mind off of it. But it was extremely draining. I put everything into that 8 hours, 5 days a week, and then I would just collapse at night.
Mm.
So I don't recommend that.
So you really didn't, you didn't grieve at all because you were too wrapped up in trying to help other people,
Yeah,
8 hours a day. And by the
yeah.
time you were done, you really didn't have time to give it the kind of grief thought that you need to give it, right?
I absolutely agree with that. And so anyone who has a loss or going through any kind of grief, aside from losing an animal, I think it goes a little bit more quickly when you lose an animal, even though losing a pet is still devastating. I've lost a number of pets over the years.
Yeah.
That one tends to go a little more quickly than losing a person. There might be people who do still need that amount of time, though. If their pet is their life, if
Right. Yeah.
that's their person,
Yeah.
then they might need that 6 weeks or more
Yeah,
to
and it's
grieve
it's no
before life.
joke. I mean, it's no joke. I mean,
No,
I know there's people that will make light of it, that geez, get over it. It was just a dog, but
mhm.
it's hard. It's for some
Yeah.
people, it's harder than others, for sure.
Yes, yes, it is. You're right. That is very oftentimes when people lose a pet, if they haven't been through it themselves or been very attached to a pet, they minimize it and roll their eyes. But
Yeah,
it is real grief.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So how do you see the connection with grief and your body's physical response to grief? Can you talk a little bit about that? How did that work for you?
Yeah. And that is one of the things that I was writing about when I was doing my journaling that first 12 days was
I'm sorry, have you always journaled, or was this something that you began as a therapy for yourself after your son committed
I
suicide?
was not a big journaler
Okay.
before.
All right.
Um, I just never really saw the need for it.
Sure.
Um, I am a letter writer, however.
Mm.
So there have been times in my life where I've gone through things where I just sat down and wrote, but not the daily journaling like I was doing when after I lost my son.
Yeah, and so for those listening that are young, that aren't seniors, writing letters is something that people used to do a lot, where they actually write words on a
Hmm.
page and they put it
Hmm.
in an envelope and they put a
Hmm.
stamp on it, that you
Hmm.
get at the United States Post Office, and
Yeah.
then you send it to somebody, and
Yeah.
that's called a letter. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I know I'm not, and it sounds like I'm joking, but for a lot of young people, for a lot of people, they don't get it.
That's
What's
true.
taking its place is, this thing, these things,
Right.
and texting and emailing and so forth. But so the journaling helped you. It made
Yeah,
it.
the journaling really helped me. And that was one of the things that I recorded in my journaling was what I was going through physically. So that first 12 days, the burning mouth syndrome hadn't hit yet,
Yeah.
but oh my goodness, what I was going through physically. Just my stomach was in knots. I couldn't eat. I was essentially living on yogurt. I knew I needed to eat something. I didn't want to,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
starve myself. I knew I needed to eat something, and that was really all I could handle. The idea of chewing was just too much effort. I know that sounds like a silly
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
but the idea of just putting food in my mouth and having to chew. So eating the yogurt was essentially yogurt and a little fruit was essentially what I lived on because my stomach was just in knots. Had insomnia. I could not sleep. I was having flashbacks. That's why I knew what kind of model that I needed for therapy because I was having these horrific flashbacks of the way my son died. Um, And so I wasn't sleeping. So my body was heavy and aching all over. My head was pounding. I mean, it was just from head to toe, just physical fatigue, exhaustion, and pain. And, just achy all over. So it was like I felt like I got run over by a truck type of
Sure,
thing.
sure.
Yeah,
And there was really nothing that you had to go through that.
I had to go
You
through
know,
that. Yeah,
you
yeah,
have family to support you and so forth, but the fact is nobody knows what to say, what to do, and
so true.
I think for a lot of people will just stay away. They'll say, "Yeah, I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to have to talk about this." So not only did you have the grief of your son's suicide, but now you're going through another situation where people wouldn't understand it and think, what is going on with Peggy? She's got,
Yeah,
I think, you know, something's
yes,
right because I've never
right.
heard of it. I've never
Yeah,
BMS. What the? I've never heard of that, and most
yeah.
people. So you it was discovered what you had. So then what happened? How did you help the
Yeah, so
condition?
once I had the diagnosis, she prescribed dissolvable clonazepam. So clonazepam is a benzodiazepine, kind of like Xanax.
Okay.
Most people are familiar with Xanax.
Yeah.
Clonazepam is generic for Klonopin. So you would hold the tab in your mouth and let it dissolve, and then just kind of let the saliva stay in there for a little bit, and then you spit it out. And she prescribed that 4 times a day. In addition to that, alpha lipoid acid. So alpha lipoid acid is a supplement, and it helps with nerve repair. It's not something where you take it and you instantly, like an aspirin that takes away a headache. It's not like that. It's the type of thing where you take it over a long period of time to help repair the nerve damage that you have. And the oral pathologist thought, with my situation, it was kind of the perfect storm.
Mhm.
So I was at that age, 59 years old. I had had a hysterectomy when I was 55, so that put me right into being postmenopausal. I was on hormone replacement therapy, but I was only prescribed estrogen and not progesterone. And progesterone is something that gets depleted in women as they age. And progesterone is protective for nerves. We have a sheath around our nerves. And as we age, that becomes thinner, and progesterone helps that sheath around the nerves to stay intact and to stay healthy.
Does that
And
happen to both
so
men and women? That they
just women,
just
just
women?
women.
Okay. All right.
Yep. And so I hadn't been prescribed that. Now, much later down the road, 2 years down the road, I finally went on progesterone because I didn't know about the connection between the healthy nerves and progesterone. So at the time, I was just on estrogen. So the perfect storm was I was postmenopausal. I'd gone through a traumatic event, so I was under enormous depression and anxiety and PTSD, all of it.
Hmm.
Also, I was malnutritioned because I was basically living on yogurt
Yeah.
for, I don't know, a month, 5 weeks, something like that. There might have been a few other small meals in there, but really not very much. And the reason the malnutrition part is important is because B12 is a nutrient in our body that keeps our nerves healthy. And so if our B12 gets low, we are more vulnerable to getting neuropathy. And this is considered neuropathy.
Yeah.
So for your seniors that are listening, there's probably some of them that have neuropathy, maybe in their hands or their feet, or okay, so you
Yeah.
have neuropathy.
Yeah.
So whenever there's neuropathy, that's one of the first things that you should have checked is your B12,
Okay.
to make sure that that's at a good level. And so I was deficient in B12. I was deficient in a lot of things, iron, all kinds of things, from being malnutrition. So it was that perfect storm of postmenopausal, malnutrition, gone through a traumatic event. So these three big risk factors. And so they then boom, this burning mouth syndrome hit. Now, in addition to that, what was happening was, and I didn't learn this from my oral pathologist. I learned this from my primary care physician. Is I also developed TMJ
Yeah.
right around this time,
And you
and
wore a mouthpiece. I know you had a mouthpiece. You had,
yes, I developed TMJ, and my doctor said that I'm likely clenching while I'm sleeping with the nightmares that I was having.
yeah.
And so then that, clenching or grinding teeth is usually what causes TMJ. So she sent me to a physical therapist. And the physical therapist gave me some exercises to do. But ultimately, Jim, it's so funny because the exercises really didn't resolve the TMJ. What resolved the TMJ, because I ended up having that for over 2 years, was I got a grounding mat from earthing.com. I was so skeptical of this whole grounding thing. And I don't want to get off track here and digress, but
Hmm. Hmm.
I do want to mention this because I think some of your listeners might really benefit from the products that earthing.com offers. And there's a video on earthing.com called the grounding movie, the earthing movie is what it's called. And the guy who created or discovered this connection made this documentary, and so it explains the grounding. So anyway, my husband and I bought one of those. We put it on our bed. You plug it into the wall, and it has this grounding effect. And people who use these grounding mats report that a lot of their physical ailments resolve. So I got the grounding mat mainly because I have a torn meniscus in my knee,
Hmm.
and it gets inflammation and things like that. And I thought, okay, I'll put this grounding mat on my bed and see what happens. Well, not only did that clear up, the tendonitis that I had in my hands from writing, could because I still take case notes,
Sure.
as a therapist. So I was dealing with tendonitis in both of my hands, and the TMJ. That all cleared up after I put the mat on my bed, and I'm sitting on one right now. So there's something called a universal mat that you can get at that website, and you just put it on a chair, plug it into the wall, and so I sit on it as I work, and I believe that it makes a huge difference. I used to end the day with terrible back pain and just achiness, and I don't experience that anymore since I
That's
sit on the
crazy.
grounding mat.
That's,
But the TMJ got cleared up from the grounding mat, which, like I said, I was super skeptical about it, but they have a 90-day money back guarantee. So I thought, oh, I'll try
yeah.
it for
Why
90
not?
days and see
Yeah.
what happens. Yeah. But it was before the 90 days that I was feeling better. It did not do anything for the burning mouth syndrome, but it did clear up the TMJ. And after the TMJ was cleared up, then I was able to chew gum because I couldn't chew gum before that. And chewing Trident bubble gum, believe it or not, is the go-to for people with burning mouth syndrome, can really be a lifesaver.
Hmm. Boy, there's so much discovery in what you're talking about, and it's all in your book. I found your book really, as I described, it's really it's a story. It's a manual, and of course a memoir as
Mhm.
well. And so how are you today? At what point are you at? And have you're not healed because it's chronic, right? You're going to have
Right.
this forever. You can
Yes.
treat it. And so where are you at today with all of this?
Great question. So I am 3.5 years now. I've had burning mouth syndrome. We moved 3 years ago to Athens, Georgia, where I
Mhm.
reside now. And I know we have that connection of Iowa.
Yeah.
That's where all of this began, was in Iowa. And Iowa just reminded me of my son too much. I just had to get out of Iowa. And
Mm.
in addition to that, my mother-in-law started having some health issues. So my husband and I thought, well, you know what? We'll move south, be near her,
Sure.
and get out of Iowa, just have a fresh start.
Hmm.
So when I came here, I sought out a new oral pathologist, someone who I could would follow my condition. Um, and when I went to her, she had the same treatment plan as my last one, but she added something new, and that was changing my diet. So she said to me, um, arginine, which is an amino acid, is a trigger for burning mouth syndrome. It makes it worse. I had never heard anything about it. I didn't see anything in the research articles
Yeah.
about arginine or changing your diet or anything like that. But I thought, I got so excited by it because I thought, wow, finally something, some answer, something that I can do different. Because what I was doing, the alpha lipoic acid, and by that time I had stopped taking the dissolvable clonazepam because the side effects were not worth it to me. Gave me brain fog, which, as you know, as a therapist, I can't really have
Yeah.
brain
Yeah.
fog.
Sure.
Yeah, it made me tired. I mean, I did take it at night. It helped me fall asleep. I'd pop one in my mouth and I would just actually not even spit it out. I would just let it be in my body.
Hmm.
Very, very small dose, 0.025 of the clonazepam. So when she said, eat foods that are higher in arginine than lysine. So I didn't really fully understand. And when you're at the doctor, you don't always think of the questions until you leave.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So you leave and you
I
think,
wish I would have asked that. Yeah.
yeah, I wish I would have asked that, or, later something comes up. So I did have, she scheduled a follow up, and I thought, well, I'll just ask these questions when I go to the follow up. I got a call about a month after I saw her from her office saying that she left the state and she was not going to be practicing there anymore. And I thought, oh my gosh,
Finally. Yeah. Finally, I
finally I
found
find
somebody.
someone. Yeah, finally I found someone
Well, you
and
got to
she's left
move.
the practice.
You got.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't, they didn't have any forwarding information for her.
Yeah.
And they said she has the same email. I emailed her 3 times, never heard anything back.
Hmm.
So I thought, okay, I've got to find a new oral pathologist. So in my area here, I started looking. I had driven to Atlanta for her, and I live in Athens, so that's about an hour and a half away.
Okay. Hmm.
So I did find someone here, but they didn't know anything about the arginine diet. All they had was the typical go-to alpha lipoic acid and clonazepam, which I was already doing. And he told me that he was not comfortable with prescribing benzodiazepines. So
Hmm.
I only saw him once and never went back to him because what was the point? He didn't have anything more to offer me. So at that point, I thought, well, I'm on my own here. I'm going to figure out this arginine thing, and I'm just going to, get a good PC, primary care physician who can follow me and go from there. So I did a deep dive uh, on the internet about foods that are higher in arginine and lysine. And thankfully, I found a website, and it's in my book, where you
Yeah.
can just put the food in and it tells you what the amino acids. Now, it doesn't have every single food, but it has a lot of them. And that's where the charts that I have in the book are from that information that I got from the website. So,
Is there any other book that has all of this in it, like
nope,
yours?
nope, this is a one of a kind. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it
I went
seemed like
searching.
it. Yeah.
I went searching.
It seems like
Yeah,
as I was reading it, it's like, good Lord, it really is a manual. This isn't like
yeah,
hype,
yeah,
making it up to make you sound like, you know what it's a lot of research that you've done that you
yeah,
actually have discovered.
yeah,
And boy, it's something that should be put in the hands of so many people to help, not just
yeah,
people like me, but doctors and people that are
yes.
in this business, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I had one person who bought my book and wrote me because I have my email in the book and I say, email me questions, and people email questions all the time. But she emailed and she said, I've been on your diet now for a couple of weeks. I'm feeling so much better. I'm so thankful about this for this book that I'm buying 6 more and I'm giving them to all my doctors.
Sure.
So that was a huge compliment to me. And getting emails from people saying, oh my gosh, I've been on the diet such and such a period of time, already noticing an improvement is just such a boon. Now, one of the things I did, you mentioned research, is I should back up and finish answering your question about where am I now.
Yeah.
So back when this was going on, so the first 2 years before I discovered the arginine connection, I would rate my pain between an 8 and 10 on the pain scale from 0 to 10. I would say 8 to 10, unbearable, agonizing every single day. I, suck on ice chips, you know, uh,
Yeah.
Ricola lozenges, drinking ice water. All I could do. I mean, there was really nothing that took it down more than maybe a couple of notches.
Yeah.
Um, Fortunately, when I was working, I would be so focused on my work
It helped you.
that my attention would be off of my burning mouth. But as soon as my work was over, the reality of how I felt. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So after going on the diet, and staying on the diet, my pain is between a 0 and 2.
Oh,
So
great.
took it way down. It is not gone,
Yeah.
and I have to stick to this diet. I've tested it out a few times, Jim, where I've splurged and eaten something that, doesn't follow the diet, and I pay for it big time.
Sure as
And
heck.
it's just a reminder. In fact, I just happened on my birthday, I had a piece of birthday cake, and grains are one of the triggers, and I paid for it the next day.
Oh,
So yeah, so this diet is real and it really makes a difference. But one of the things that I did was I joined a couple of support groups on Facebook. So there are some burning mouth syndrome support groups. There's actually a handful of them
yeah.
on Facebook. So if you just do a search, burning mouth syndrome, the groups will come up, and then you can join, and then you have to fill out a little questionnaire, and
Sure, to
then
make
say you're
sure.
not
Yeah.
going to spam and stuff like that, and then you can
Right.
be part of the group. So one of the things that I did was I asked for volunteers. I wanted 20 volunteers to go on this diet because I wanted to see, is it just me?
Your own clinical study, so to speak,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't, it helped me, but I can't say just because it's me that it would help other people.
Yeah.
So I had many, many volunteers. I don't know, 50 or something like that. So many volunteers that the administrator said, "You got to stop talking about the diet because there's just too many,
Yeah.
too many. There's an influx of messages coming through." So I selected 20 people from that group to do the diet. And there were a couple who dropped out, who didn't, with any study, there were a couple that
Sure.
dropped out.
Mm-hmm.
But virtually the rest of them that stayed on the diet reported that it was significantly helpful to them and reduced their pain. So then I thought, I'm onto something here with this
Mm-hmm.
diet. Even though I lost the oral pathologist that gave me this information, I don't have her as a resource. She gave me that little nugget of information, enough for me to do the research, to do the diet myself, to test it on people, to know, okay, this works. So, but I will say this, it takes great discipline
Oh, I would,
because there's,
yeah, yeah. Those people that agreed to be part of your study or the diet, they, I would guess, it's hard to stay with any diet, whether it's weight loss. But I would
yes,
guess yours is very very strict and very difficult.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's
so
difficult in the beginning, I should say.
yeah,
Once you get used to it, I used to have the list of foods and everything in my phone that I would avoid, and we'd go to a restaurant, and then I'd pull up my
yeah,
list. Okay, there's
yeah.
these ingredients or whatever. Now I have it memorized, so I
So
don't
you,
need to do that.
and so there's certain restaurants you can probably go to that make it so much easier for you, right?
Yes, yes. Obviously, if you're going to a pizza place, that's not going to work.
Forget it. Yeah.
Forget it, unless they have salads or something like that. But because wheat it can be a trigger. Now, here's another caveat to it, is that there are certain avoid foods that some people say don't bother them.
Mhm.
So what I have people do, I have them create their own treatment plans. And if they follow the book, is they go on a cleanse diet for 2 weeks where they just follow the diet strictly.
Mhm.
Then they can bring foods in and start testing them
Add back.
and bring back foods back in. So for example, nuts is on the avoid list, all nuts and seeds. I tested out almonds and they're fine,
Huh.
but I can't have walnuts.
Oh, geez.
So for whatever reason, almonds are fine, but walnuts are not. So I don't want people to feel discouraged when they look at the list of foods and go, oh my gosh, I have to avoid all these things just for 2 weeks until you get to the testing phase. And
Yeah.
then you can start bringing foods in. And I have a whole protocol in there of how to test and all of that. So if people are wondering how to do that, it's all mapped out in the book. And so there are going to be more foods from the avoid list that you can have, most people.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
a big trigger for me was blueberries. And I was eating blueberries in my yogurt during my grief almost every day.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
how would you know? I mean, you
And
just.
bananas. Bananas is another one. I was eating bananas almost every day. So in my yogurt. And so, yeah, there was, how would I know? And bananas, some people can tolerate them, other people can't. I cannot tolerate bananas.
Yeah.
There's also, talk about this in my book, instant triggers and delayed triggers.
Hmm.
So an instant trigger would be you eat it, and within 10 or 15 minutes, the
Yeah.
burning gets worse.
Yeah.
Delayed triggers are a little trickier. It might be like when I ate the cake the other day,
Yeah.
it was the next day that I paid for it.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm guessing, are you, do you speak on this? Are you part of an organization, a BMS organization?
I don't know of any BMS organizations, and that's a
Oh, there's not
lovely
like a,
idea, Jim,
yeah,
that
well, there's not a
someone should start one. Yeah.
well, yeah, I would think they would have gatherings, not conventions necessarily, but like the, you know, uh, Cancer Society, the Heart, whatever. I would think there would be a group for this condition. I would think you would be someone they would reach out to. I mean, what you've gathered, it's what I see as that I feel badly about for people that have it is they don't know you. They
Right.
and
Yes.
they don't
Yeah.
they don't have access to your story and uh, your book. I mean, your book's available, but who would know? I mean, you
Right.
wouldn't know. Um,
Right.
doctors, I know doctors probably get fewer hours in studying nutrition than just about anything. So the nutrition thing
Right.
is something. So how are you getting the word out for this? Are you doing anything proactively to make sure you get your book in the hands of the people who need it? How are you?
Right now, I'm mostly staying in touch with people on the Burning Mouth Syndrome support groups on
Okay.
Facebook.
Uh-huh.
And word of mouth has been, that, I mean, if if someone posts, hey, I tried this and it's really helping, like people just rush in to try that thing because they're
Yeah.
so desperate for answers. So that's one way I've been getting the word out. And I thought about how do because this is one of the ways that I'm going to say part of my grief recovery is writing this book,
Uh-huh.
is being able to, because it's extremely healing to be able to do for others.
Mm.
And that's one of the things I would recommend to other seniors who are going through health issues or going through grief or those types of things, is find ways to give back, even if it's a little bit. Find ways to help other people. And sometimes just talking about your situation can be, therapeutic for other people.
Yeah.
And so I wish there were a way. And if you have any other ideas, Jim, I'm open to it. Letting, because there isn't a, like you said, cancer society type of thing. Now, I do know that it's discussed in the oral pathology world,
Yeah.
because I do have a new oral pathologist, not the guy that said he doesn't feel comfortable prescribing. I drive 2.5 hours away to Augusta, so there's a dental university there, and so I see an oral pathologist there, and her prescription is the mouth guard. And so this was something that she prescribed to me. If I'm, I rarely use it, but if I have a flare or something like that, I can pop that in. And what it does, the mouth guard, it distracts your brain.
Yeah.
So your brain goes to the feeling of the mouth guard in your mouth instead of the burning in your mouth. It doesn't work for me in my work because I talk so much,
Yeah.
but it's great for falling asleep. Or let's say you have a day where you're just going to go shopping, you're out by yourself or whatever, pop your mouth guard in. It's kind of like Invisalign, so it fits very
Okay.
tightly to the teeth, and then it covers the roof of your mouth.
Yeah.
So it's not like mouth guards for snorers or,
Right.
TMJ or that kind of thing. It's where they're really bulky. This is very thin, like an Invisalign. So you could wear it. And if you worked a job where, let's say you're behind a desk and
Uh-huh.
you're on a computer all day, easily pop that thing
Easily.
in, and
Yeah.
it's a great way to another treatment that you can
Yeah.
use.
Well,
Yeah.
Peggy, your story is amazing. It's wild and it's crazy and wow, girl.
Yeah. It's been a roller coaster for sure.
Um,
And when I mentioned that I score 9 on the ACE, that the adverse childhood experiences, I've written a second book called Surviving the Family Kingdom. That's a memoir, so that's a much bigger project. And I'm at the tail end of working on that,
yeah.
just in the final editing stages, and probably will be published in a couple of months.
Yeah.
My son, who's an artist, he's going to help me with book cover design and that sort of thing. So
Sure.
if people want, or if they're interested in that story at all, it's I grew up with a mother who started a cult. And so she took me out of school in 8th grade. So I never went to high school. I later got my GED, went to college, went to graduate school, and then became a therapist. But as a child, I didn't have access to education. We traveled around the world, or not around the world, sorry, around the country, saving people,
Yeah.
bringing in converts. And so that's what that book is about. It's called Surviving the Family Kingdom. So if people would like, if they're interested in that, they can email me and I'll be happy to send them for free the first 3 chapters and
Yeah.
then alert them when the book comes out.
Okay.
And I don't
And
know if you'll,
they also can go to your website, right?
they can go to my website, which is peggysharr.com. So
Sharr. Okay.
yes,
And
yep,
I'll have that in the notes
yeah.
for this as well, in case you don't have to write it down now, but that'll be in the show notes, so to speak, and so people can get.
Yes, and actually, there's a newsletter that I do twice a month for the burning mouth syndrome people. And the newsletter, I put all kinds of things in there, including recipes, new research I've discovered. So, for example, I'm letting people know that gabapentin can lead to dementia. So a big study just came out that long-term use of gabapentin, which is a drug that is given oftentimes for neuropathy, can lead to dementia or cognitive decline. So that would be something that I would put in my newsletter. And gabapentin is often prescribed for burning mouth syndrome. I tried it. It didn't do anything for my burning mouth syndrome, but some people find it helpful. And that's another thing I go into in the book is it's not a one size fits all.
Right, right, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's evident from reading the book. I have so many more questions, but we're out of time, and I wish I had more time. But if people want to reach you, that you've got the website, you've got the book, which I can't bring up right now because there it is. It's on my phone,
Yep. Yep.
in a Kindle, and it's also in a paperback edition as well. They pick it up, and at least, at the very least, if you have heard of somebody who has this, if it's 2 to 3%, that 2 out of 100, 3 out of 100 people that you may know might have this and might
Yeah.
mention it. There's help. There's help.
There's help. There's absolutely help. Yep. And peggysharr.com is the website, and they can order the book from there as well. If they want to send me questions, it's contact Peggy at peggysharr.com.
Okay. Well, this
Yeah.
has been an enlightening decision or discussion, and I appreciate it so much, Peggy.
Thank you, Jim, for having me.
Thank you for taking the time to be in here.
All
Have a
right,
great day in Georgia. We'll talk to you soon.
thank you. It's a beautiful day here.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. And if you like this will be on YouTube. Please like it. Please subscribe. And I'd appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.